Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for another Skylanders ranking video here on the channel. Skylanders Swap Force introduced us to so many cool brand new gameplay elements, one of which was a minigame referred to as swap zones. The bottom half of every Swap Force Skylander had a certain skill which made these swap zones accessible to any swap combination that possessed the corresponding swap skill for the bottom half of the character. With there being 16 total Swap Force Skylanders, they made 8 different swap skills so that each swap skill appeared on 2 different characters. These swap skills were Climb, Dig, Rocket, Spin, Speed, Teleport, Bounce, and Sneak. Naturally, the swap zones for all of these swap skills were not made equally, as some of these challenges are far better than others. So that's what we're here to do today, none other than rank the different swap zone types. So let's roll that intro and get into it without further ado. Whenever you beat a swap zone hidden in the main levels throughout Skylanders Swap Force, it unlocks the swap zone challenge for you to play at your own leisure outside the main levels. These swap zone challenges were the same exact designs as the swap zone you initially beat to unlock it, but this time you need to replay through the swap zone with 3 additional challenges. Each challenge you beat results in you earning a star for your Portal Master rank up to a maximum of 3 stars per swap zone challenge. These additional objectives remain the same for every swap zone challenge of the same swap skill. For example, every rocket challenge had the same 3 objectives: to beat the swap zone, collect all the swap medals, and not take any damage in the process. No matter the design of the swap zone challenge at hand, these were always the same objectives for the rocket skill type. This ranking is based on the challenge version of each swap skill, so the swap skills with the most painful objectives to earn all 3 stars in the challenges will not be ranking better against those with the better objectives. The other factors in the ranking of the swap zones include how fun and fast-paced the minigame is, how well the minigame takes advantage of the actual swap skill itself, their ability to change up the design for each specific swap zone challenge of the same swap skill type, as well as just the creativity behind the design of the swap zone minigame in it of itself. To make it clear, I'm ranking for 8 swap zones for each swap skill type, and I'm not ranking each individual swap zone challenge. With that in mind, let's start off this ranking list with Spin at number 8. These zones have the objectives: destroy the Chaos Statue, collect all swap medals, and don't use Super Spin. In spin challenges, you have very little control over your character. It acts like a pinball game where you ricochet off of everything you bump into, which takes away your control completely, and you don't have any precision where it's needed. The only way to shift momentum easily and react to being thrust into the incorrect direction is with the super spin, something you can't do for the sake of the objectives. It also takes much longer to break through hazards without super spin, giving you more opportunities to be thrust into a random direction that you didn't intend for. The lack of control you feel, combined with the randomness of where you're sent whenever you slightly bump a stage hazard, makes failure seem unlucky and your triumphs are unrewarding. Not to mention, you fail by losing all your health or falling off the side of the platform. Obviously, you can nullify the health issue by picking a top half like Rattleshake who can absorb a lot of damage, but even then it's still really hurtful to lose in this manner with your lack of control. You can easily run into damaging hazards such as mines through no fault of your own, and nightmare mode is not forgiving, so it'll only take a couple of mistakes before you're forced to start the swap zone from the very beginning, and these zones are not short. Without super spin, it takes so much longer to break through blocks, so all that time is wasted as you have to restart, and it just adds to the frustration of failing for something totally out of your control, or at least it certainly does feel that way. These swap zones also aren't very fast paced. You feel the time pass as you play through them, making it even more painful whenever you fail. Plus, you might even need to do these twice, once to get all the swap medals, then again to do it without using super spin, because I swear that the super spin is essential when collecting some of these swap medals. Yep, any objective which takes away a fundamental mechanic to a challenge is bound to be infuriating, and this is no different. Plus, the fundamental design of a challenge means that each individual zone has very little potential to differ from the last one you played. All of these zones look and play the exact same way, and it makes them very repetitive, dull, and uninteresting after the first one, let alone the several others you still have to play through. But for number 7, I have bounce zones, which aren't much better. These objectives involve popping the Chaos Balloon, collecting all swap medals, and bouncing on every single island. Ugh, I cringe just by thinking of the need to complete this objective. Whilst in midair after a bounce, once you move you must commit because you have no agility within the air whatsoever, so correcting upon your mistakes is practically impossible. This means you really need to spend some time beforehand thinking about the route you're going to take before you even think about bouncing away from the island you're currently safe upon, and preferably you'll need to get all the swap medals along the way as well. What doesn't help is that sometimes you'll have to double back on yourself for an island you did initially bounce on, but the fixed camera when doing this means the island is out of view and you need to simply guess where it is. If you fall or lose all your health, you have to restart the challenge, and the wasted time is really frustrating. It gets repetitive very quickly, and the zones aren't exactly fast-paced. If your platformer is perfect, then you have to wait for the character to slowly float back down to the platform. A fast-forward button would have been a game-changer for this. The only thing giving this zone for edge over for spin zones is that even a lack of control in midair is greater than no control whatsoever. The zones each have a more distinguishing features them to make each one feel at least a little different to the last, so they don't overstay their welcome as soon as the spin zones do. I just hate how easy it is to mess these zones up and be forced to start all over again. Why can't these zones have checkpoints after each balloon? And if they still do get very repetitive and uninspired, as a lot of these challenges are similar, and they all sort of amalgamate together for me in terms of their design. But next we have climb zones. These objectives involve climbing to the top, collecting all swap medals, and never getting hit. Not getting hit is an easy enough objective because you're given plenty of time to see the hazards above you, so you can easily react to what's coming or plan out the route you're gonna take. Mistakes at least feel as though they're your own fault, as you're given more control and more agility to get out of tough spots this time around. These zones don't really have anything fundamentally wrong with them, they're just incredibly basic, leading to every challenge feeling the same, as they don't really have anything within their design to distinguish themselves from one another. Each one feels the same, as such they get repetitive and boring very quickly. These zones can feel a little slow paced at times because you tend to travel slow or not at all when planning out your route and trying to be cautious not to take any damage, but for better control over the character is very welcome, especially when compared to both spin and bounce zones. It's actually rewarding to beat these, as it doesn't just feel like dumb luck and rather actual skill on your behalf. Next up I have speed zones, with the objectives to complete the zone, collect all swap medals, and complete the zone with a certain number of seconds remaining. In swap force zones of the speed variety, it's not encouraged for you to use for boosters for unique speed zone mechanic, it's downright necessary in order to complete that final objective, and that makes them a lot more fun. These challenges are always moving forward, and you only have one chance to collect the swap force medals during each section of the track. If you miss them, then you better remember where you missed them to ensure you don't make the same mistake the second time around. This rewards your knowledge of the track, and missing medals doesn't feel too cheap, as you can see them in plenty of time before they pop up in order to react quickly enough. But playing these over and over again are no big deal because they're short and very fast paced. That's really the main praise I have for these zones. Like the climb zones, they can't really do much to differ in design because each challenge feels the same, they become stale quite quickly. That's why speed zones are over here at number 5 on the ranking. But just shy of the bronze medal in the ranking is the dig zones, coming in at number 4. These are open world areas after you dig into the ground that you can explore to find swap medals and dig up crystals. The objectives, however, make it so you must play through the swap zones twice. These objectives are to collect all of the crystals, collect all of the swap medals, and complete the zone with a certain number of seconds remaining. Swap medals are always placed away from crystals, so to collect them you lose too much time and can't complete the final objective as well. This makes these challenges get really tedious and repetitive quite quickly. It doesn't help that these zones are slow paced due to the slow movement speed of the dig bottom halves. However, these are really well designed challenges. They incorporate unique challenges into each zone to make them all distinctive and memorable. Some will be more platforming orientated, whereas others will focus more on your dodging of hazards. These are much more fun challenges to tackle than those previously mentioned on the list, so even with the flaws, dig zones are easily coming in here at number 4 on the ranking list. But as for number 3 on the other hand, we have the most unutilized swap zone type of them all. There are only 5 sneak zones in the entire game, and the objectives are as follows. You need to sneak through the fortress, collect all swap medals, and never get spotted. This makes all 3 objectives attainable on the first run through, so you don't have to play the same swap zones over and over again to avoid things from getting stale through repetition. It can feel a little cheap when you have to turn invisible on top of a hazard that will strip away your health, and the hitboxes on the spotlights are a little bit too generous towards the spotlights. Half of the time I get spotted when I feel as though I should not have been spotted. And once again, if you run out of health, you must restart the challenge, and that's beyond infuriating. Or if you get spotted even once, it's encouraged you restart the zone so that then you don't fail the third objective. Especially since these challenges are the slowest your character will ever move. But what is clever is that whenever you do move with your character, the sneak music plays to the same pace as your movement, so it's actually a really great way to invest you into the challenge at hand. But it doesn't take away from the fact that these challenges are pretty slow paced at times. You can also occasionally be caught by blind drops where you get spotted as you don't have enough time to react, or sometimes you just fall into the spotlight that you cannot see. These are really cheap ways to lose the challenge, which infuriate you, but overall mistakes made are generally your own fault, and triumphs are once again really rewarding, as exploration, quick reactions and patience are the key to successfully navigating these zones, rather than factors that feel so RNG based and out of your control. With these being wide open areas as well, just like the dig zones, these zones do a lot with their design and the layout of the levels themselves to make each zone feel distinctive and memorable. One of them is set entirely in 2.5D, and it's particularly memorable and unique when compared to the others, which is why I have it for the gameplay you see before you. These are well designed zones which are fun, even if they're a little slow paced for my liking. But what's clever about them is how they taunt you. They know how much you want to rush through them, but you must be patient or you risk losing out on the last objective. But receiving our silver medal at the number 2 spot is instead going to be rocket zones, which are the perfect combination of speed and climb zones, as they are perfect in execution. You can rocket straight through them at great pace, and the controls are flawless so that you can easily navigate any obstacle you come across, and if you hit it, it's purely your own fault, whether it's due to a lack of patience or just a simple incorrect movement which was made on your own behalf. The objectives include flying through the final ring, collecting all swap medals, and not taking any damage along the way. You can precisely navigate through hazards, but you can't linger when planning your routes due to the timer. That added pressure increases your adrenaline racing through these sections and keeps things fast paced. The swap medal hitboxes are also very generous, adding to the overall feeling of fairness the challenge offers you. These zones do enough with their design to distinguish themselves from one another, and each zone feels different and fresh, so they never get stale to play through. Plus, some of them are surprisingly tough. You will have to have a few goes at it to memorize the patterns of the hazards in order to blaze through and still get all the swap medals in time. This just makes your success that much more rewarding, and it's simply just a fast-paced and rewarding swap zone challenge to play through each and every time, which is what earns it that number 2 spot on the ranking list. But rocket zones, they still can't hold a candle to our number 1 spot, which is none other than teleport zones. Now, this is the last swap zone introduced through the main story, as you don't play for the first teleport swap zone until the 3rd chapter of the game, but they really were saving the best for last. The only flaw of this swap zone, and I mean literally the only one, is that the design of each individual challenge isn't very distinctive from one another, and it leads to the feeling that you're playing the same swap zone over and over again, even when switching up the specific swap zone challenge you're currently playing. But this swap zone challenge is so good that I'm absolutely okay with playing it over and over again. Your momentum is never halted, so like speed zones, they're fast paced, all of the time without exception. You're also given plenty of time to react to hazards, so any mistake you make is purely your own fault, so the challenge is never frustrating. They're also short, so restarting a challenge is never a problem in my opinion. There is enough randomness in where the pyramids spawn, so that it doesn't feel frustrating, but also it feels different each time you tackle the specific challenge at hand, and you need to react to things on screen rather than wait and plan it out ahead of time. It really rewards your on-the-spot thinking. Again, this is just like speed zones, but with tighter controls and an even faster pacing. These zones are also tougher than speed zones, increasing your sense of reward when being successful, and just like sneak zones, it keeps you invested in the challenge as well, so it's just thoroughly entertaining from beginning to end whenever you tackle a teleport zone. Of all 8 swap zone types, these are the ones I look forward to playing through the most every single time without exception, and that is why they get number 1 on this ranking. But with that being said, the video is officially coming to an end. If you enjoyed, then please remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. Let me know what your favourite swap zones are in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear just how wrong I am. As always, please remember to keep the conversation civilised, as these are only people's opinions, and naturally they're going to differ from person to person, and everyone's opinion is equally valid, except mine. My opinion is the correct one. That is fact. It's just how opinions work. Hey, I don't make up the rules, I just reinforce them. But with that being said and done, let's roll the outro without further ado. I cannot, in good conscience, end off this video without first thanking all of my incredible channel members whose continued support help make these videos possible. Without them, these videos would be near impossible to make, so from the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate every last one of them. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, there are plenty of options on screen now to explore, and please consider subscribing to keep up to date with all my content. On that note, this video is coming to an end, so thank you so much as always for watching. Until the next video arises, peace!